Well, I'm glad the NFL made us wait 6 days to watch that game because that was edge of your seat entertainment. And welcome into a new episode of the Zero Technique Football Podcast. I am your co-host, Ryan Stern. You can follow me on Twitter at rstern33. And join with me, as always, Derek Mountain, Back Sports Page. How you doing tonight, Derek?
Well, you couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself. I guess AFC North, big-time rivalry, but the Steelers really just never convinced me in any of their wins ever this year.
I mean, their schedule really has been as easy as a schedule that you can have for an 11-0 team. And some of these past couple games, if I didn't look at their record, I would have never guessed that this is an undefeated team. I came away, even though they looked awful for most of this game, I came away more impressed with the Ravens than I did with the Steelers.
Yeah, it was a valiant effort by them. They had, 26 guys on the COVID list by the end of all of this. They got a few guys back by the end of it, but they were without half their starting lineup. And, I mean, RG3, props to him for going out there, but a shell of himself. You can't really run an offense with him back there. And it was a really sloppy football game from the jump. But the credit to the Ravens for at least hanging in there. Now, that debacle in the end of the first half was –
oh my God.
All on John Harbaugh. That was that clock mismanagement is just that can't happen. I mean, that's of course the Steelers are going to do that, and everyone's crying for a delay of game. A ref will never make that call with under 2 minutes to go, ever.
Oh, absolutely not. And if you think about it, the offenses, what you look at the offenses, the Ravens offense actually outscored the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
14-13. I mean, that interception to Joe Hayden that was returned for a touchdown. I mean, RG3 was it's been 6 years since he's been relevant in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
6 years.
I thought it was a shot that he was at least going to give them, some continuity in that offense. He's been a backup for a few years. I mean, he's obviously not the RG3 of old, but he has a similar skill set. And he was elusive for a couple runs today. Obviously, he can't run a lot because he is very fragile. But I thought he would at least put up 14 to 17 points by himself today. But they had to wait for McSorley to get a little spark through the air.
And, of course, we finally see a long touchdown by Hollywood Brown, something that we've been waiting for all year. And I saw Adam Ronis tweet out. He's big in fantasy, in the fantasy industry. He tweeted out that he scored that long touchdown from everybody's benches. And I replied to him, no, or someone's waiver wire, because
I was going to say I don't want any business of him being on my team.
I mean, the fact that he's been so inefficient this year, and it's not like he hasn't been receiving the targets. Now,
no.
What do you think? This is something that I've been thinking about for a while with Hollywood Brown, because I've had the opportunity to either pick him up and then also drop him in a couple different leagues in fantasy. Is this a Lamar Jackson issue? Is it a Hollywood Brown issue? Is it a play calling issue?
I think it's a combination of everything. I do put a big indictment on Greg Roman's offense. I think they kind of funnel Hollywood Brown in that vertical threat receiving role, and they take their shots with him down the field pretty much every single week, but they don't really give him anything underneath. But also, he hasn't been the most reliable guy when he's targeted. And Willie Snead, who didn't play today, he's just been better, at least in the underneath and intermediate route game. And is that maybe his role, and is he getting less attention than Hollywood Brown? Yeah, of course he is. But when Hollywood Brown's been given those opportunities like today, I think it was the first half, he was matched up with TJ Watt in the flat, and Watt carried him up the sideline, and Hollywood Brown gave the old alligator arms and didn't even make an attempt for a decent pass from RG3, one of the very few catchable passes of the game. Seems like he does that every week. He doesn't really sell out to get the ball. I don't know if the desire is really there right now. You can just see with the body language, he's very frustrated by his role and not getting the football that much.
Yeah, this is a team that sorely needs a difference maker at the wide receiver position. And with this upcoming draft, there's at least 4 or 5 guys that I can see going in the first round, and the guy that makes the most perfect sense to me is someone like a Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota. He's that physical, chain moving receiver that they just don't have. They didn't have the 70-yard touchdown to Marquise Brown was the first time all game that they had a first down on a passing play.
I mean,
57 and a half minutes into the game.
And good for him for getting that touchdown. But look, I mean, it was a terrible angle by Minka. I mean, it was a nice hole shot by McSorley across the field, I guess. But in a regular game with regular circumstances where they're not coming from behind in garbage time, a play's just not happening. That's not real offense. But, I mean, that's a perfect illustration of the struggles they have through the air. Even when Lamar's in there, it's not nearly to the degree that we saw today, but I mean, Lamar has really struggled through the air.
Yeah, and it didn't get any better today with RG3 or Trace McSorley. The one thing for the Steelers, they in victory they did get a big blow to their defense. Bud Dupree did all initial tests indicate that it's most likely a torn ACL, which means he would be done for the season. Watt and Dupree are the number one sack tandem in the entire league. And Bud Dupree is one of the reasons why this Steelers defense is as successful as it is, because offenses plan to take away TJ Watt. You can't plan to take away both of them. And obviously I think Watt, we both think, is probably the more explosive player, but Dupree is not that far behind. So it's not like you're going down from tier A to tier C. You're going tier A to tier A minus.
In terms of a complementary pass rusher, which is really hard to find nowadays, teams look for one. I mean, they got 2 legit edge rushers, and Bud Dupree is as athletic as they come for a complementary guy. I mean, he would be the number one on most teams. And I think he was leading Watt in terms of QB hits and sacks for most of the season up until the last couple of weeks for the reason you just said. I mean, teams are always going to slide towards TJ Watt, chip a tight end, chip a running back with them. And Bud Dupree always could take advantage of those one-on-one matchups. Now we get to see Alex Highsmith, their third-round pick. They didn't have that many draft picks. I think 5 in the draft. We're seeing Claypool obviously dominate this year. Highsmith's been really good in the rotational role, but this is a huge ask of him. Yeah. He's going to have to play nearly every snap now.
And how many drop passes can we see from one team? I mean, I needed like a 30-point day out of Deontay in order to win in one of my leagues, and it probably wasn't coming anyway. But I mean, how many? At least 3 down the field drops, which could have turned into one.
He's the most reliable guy.
I mean, and it wasn't just him with the drops.
Ebron is good for 2 or 3 every week. He's brutal.
So in my Dynasty League, I've actually been playing Ebron with I have Zach Ertz, who hasn't really been good at all, except for one game this year. But I've been playing Zach Ertz for the majority of Ebron for the majority of the season, and he he always puts up enough numbers to keep him relevant, but there's so much more that can come out of Eric Ebron.
He's a nightmare. He's a matchup nightmare. I mean, there's a reason he was picked in the top 10, and obviously he did not live up to that stature in Detroit, but we saw his flashes in Indy, and he had 14 touchdowns, 2 years ago? I mean, he's a freak. He's a beast, but he's always had drop issues in his career, always.
I remember sitting there in Radio City in 2014 and feeling a little bit disappointed that the Giants ended up with Odell Beckham Jr. and not Eric Ebron, because Eric Ebron was the guy that I had wanted, either him or Zach Martin. And
I think him and just some of these early tight end picks are not going to happen anymore. Maybe Kyle Pitts this year, but he's basically a receiver.
We all know where Kyle Pitts is going to end up. He's going to end up in New England.
I don't know about that. Why do you say that? I don't know if that's a Belichick pick.
It's not former Belichick. It's a post-Brady Belichick pick.
I mean, I think he would probably be the best or one of the best players on the board when they're picking there. I think he's a top 10 talent, and he's the quintessential new age tight end. He's the Jimmy Graham, Gronkowski, not the same body type, but that kind of dynamic game changer in the middle of the field. But I don't know. I mean, I think they picked 2 tight ends this year. I feel like Belichick's going to look more towards boring picks, as he always does, at least in the higher picks.
Yeah, but look who they're sending out there. They're sending out Ryan Izzo, Devin Asiasi. These guys just aren't game changers. And one thing Belichick looks for is game changers, and Pitts can be a game changer.
Him with Cam would be interesting. That would be a cool duo to watch.
Look at who maybe the most successful pass catcher in Cam's biggest year. Could have been Greg Olsen.
Definitely. I mean, he was most reliable by far.
Yeah. And speaking of dynamic football players, we unfortunately got the unfortunate news. Was it yesterday, the day before that? I think it was on Monday. That Will Fuller's been suspended for 6 games. And Will Fuller has. It's always been, can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, he's going to be really good. And he's the number 4 wide receiver in all of fantasy football this year. And now Will Fuller is out for 6 games. He's a free agent, just like Bud Dupree. So now he's going to face a similar situation in terms of going into free agency with a huge question mark. To me, this has all the writings of going back to Houston on a hometown discount written all over it. But this changes everything about, especially if a lot of people have been counting on Deshaun Watson in fantasy over the past couple of weeks. Ever since the Bill O'Brien firing, Watson has been one of the more elite players week in, week out, because of what Will Fuller has brought to the offense and the fact that he actually had been healthy and played every game. Now that takes a huge part of that offense away.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, they cut Kenny Stills last week, and he was kind of that insurance policy for Will Fuller last year and stepped in nicely when he went down. But I mean, not much of a coincidence that the year Will Fuller stays healthy, he tests positive for PEDs on the contract year. I respect the hustle, but of course the league tests him after he went bananas on Detroit on Thanksgiving. But yeah, Deshaun Watson's already spoken up. He says he wants Will Fuller back. Says he's a wide receiver 1. He wants him to re-sign, and it works out nicely for Houston. They have a pretty dire cap situation next year. If the cap were to stay flat, they're $12 million over the cap for next year. Now, they will have to restructure guys like Deshaun Watson, who they just signed, J.J. Watt, Laramie Tunsil, and I'm sure they'll make it work, but it's a perfect opportunity to get Fuller back on maybe another 1-year prove-it deal for him and to show that it wasn't a fluke. So we'll see, but yeah, I totally agree. It kills his market.
Yeah, and you look at what this what the Houston offense, what you can expect, and Brandon Cooks. There's another guy who we hadn't seen in previous years be able to stay on the field. He's been able to stay on the field, and he's been very productive. I'm not sure that he can just step into the Will Fuller role. They play I think they play very different styles of wide receiver. I think someone like a Kiki Kuti
I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy that steps up. He'll play in the slot. Randall Cobb's in the IR. And Cutie's been a guy that Watson has targeted in the past. He's pretty reliable. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. But I think it's Cutie. And then Isaiah Coulter is going to get a role on the outside. He was their 5th-round pick out of Rhode Island. They took more of a flyer on him as an athlete. He looks great, 6'3", I think 210, and he ran a legit 4.45 at the combine. Like he can do it all as an athlete, but you're going to question the competition. Deep wide receiver room until a couple. So he.
So, sorry.
He's going to be thrusted into.
Sorry, so in fact, sorry, I have a little bit of a technical issue. The guy that I'm actually looking forward to taking a big step in this Houston offense is tight end Jordan Akins. He's really been he's had his hit or miss games, but he seems to be a consistent contributor to the offense. And I think that even though he plays tight end, we can maybe see him used on the outside more because they're filled with a lot of slot type receivers. And maybe we start to see Jordan Akins be used on the outside because they also do like having Darren Fells in line. So maybe we see some of that. Maybe we see more 12 personnel. All right. I think we hopefully we got the technical glitch squared away. Yeah, so that's gonna wrap it up for the talk on the Houston Texans. One thing that both of us wanted to actually discuss before we got into our Week 12 takeaways, and that was the decision by Tyrod Taylor to not file a grievance after what happened earlier in the season where he went to, I think it was try and get an injection, which ended up puncturing his lung and effectively lost him his spot as a starting quarterback in the NFL once again.
Yeah, and there were two ways for him to approach it, either file a grievance against the doctor and the team, but he went the other way, I think. I mean, yes, he could have gone on the grounds that this doctor cost him a lot of money as a starting quarterback, but we're also seeing Justin Herbert rip it up. And he didn't exactly tear it up week 1 against Cincinnati. They squeaked by 16-13, and Herbert's been sensational ever since he's been thrusted in the starting lineup. But look, Tyrod knows. He's been around the league. You don't want to rock front offices and these teams and scare them away with something like this, a PR nightmare. And when free agency comes, I think it's a black mark on you when you file a grievance against a team, a doctor like this. He still wants to play football. He's going to be one of the best backups in football. And a team might take him on next year to be that bridge QB that he was going to be on the Chargers, what we thought he was going to be on the Chargers before the season. But I think he just avoided any trouble. He didn't want the black mark on him. He still wants to have a career in the NFL.
Yeah, I think the age plays a lot into it for me. I mean, he's quietly one of the older quarterbacks in the league right now. So, and yes, he is considered one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. But I don't know what his financial situation is like at home. I don't know what his thoughts about how long he actually wants to play for. I'm sure a lot of that came into his decision to not file a grievance. But if there could have been a lot of money that he could have made because he all he had to do was point at the fact that he was the starting quarterback of an NFL team, which is as lucrative a job as there is in the world of sports. And what happened cost him his job, which could have cost him a lot of money in the future. I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that he doesn't want the black mark on him, that if something goes bad, he's going to go crying to the league or whatever. But this would have been, and again, everybody's situation is different. He could be very comfortable with how he's been living at home, and all the power to him if he is that. So, but I know if I'm in a situation where I'm getting towards the end of my career and someone took that away from me, I'd be pissed.
Well, it's an interesting issue because I don't know where the precedent lies in the fact that so it happened in the Chargers facility, and as an employee of the Chargers organization, would he have to pay for his lawyer fees if he's filing a grievance against the Chargers and the team doctor? And I mean, we know how that goes. NFL and the Chargers are obviously going to stretch that out as long as they can. They're going to have the best corporate lawyers in the world, and Tyrod Taylor is not going to win that battle. He's definitely going to win some money, but I don't know if he's going to win the war in the end. And I think that what that is to him is staying in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think we look at it from a hindsight is 2020 thing, where we're looking at it as that what happened with Taylor only accelerated the process of Justin Herbert gaining the starting role,
and he's not naive. I mean, yeah, exactly. Everyone can see everybody has the same eyes and knows what we're watching with Herbert. He's special. I know. I'm sure in the beginning he was a little pissed about it, but I'm sure he has no qualms about it now that Herbert's starting over him.
Oh yeah, how could you? That would be like Drew Bledsoe complaining to Bill Belichick about why is Tom Brady continuing to start over me?
And he was pissed at the beginning, and you hear Drew Bledsoe to this day say, "I would have won the same amount of Super Bowls," and it's good that he has that competitive edge, and I'm sure Tyrod feels the same way. But I mean, these guys aren't dumb. And Anthony Lynn, literally, he didn't want to go to Herbert, at least from what we had heard in his little press clippings. He waited till the very last moment to announce Herbert as the starter, just moving forward, and he assumed the starting job for the rest of the year, but he really wanted to start Tyrod.
Yeah, and then look at Tony Romo and Dak Prescott. Prescott was he was a 4th round draft pick and second, maybe third string. And then Romo gets hurt in preseason, and I think a lot of people were actually surprised that they decided to go with Prescott. The fact that he was a 4th round rookie getting start week 1 when they had who was the backup? Was it Kitna?
Oh, Kitna was long gone, I think. I think it was just Dak as the preseason. I do remember he had like a perfect passer rating that preseason. Like he was lights out.
Seattle. I remember the game against Seattle where he came in.
That was the best team I've ever seen Dallas have. They were 13-3, and that was when they lost in the divisional round to the Packers. It was that Jared Cook, like 3rd and whatever play. And down the sideline, Rodgers does what he always does, something absolutely sensational.
27. I think it was like the 3rd and 27.
Exactly. So, and that was Dallas's best team in Prescott's career by far.
Yep. All right, let's get into Week 12 takeaways. What was your first takeaway from this longest week in NFL history?
So I had it queued up before the game today, and I even feel better about it, but I don't think people are really talking about the Bills enough. I don't think they're getting the credit that they're due, and it's almost better to me that they're finding other ways to win, and it's not pretty. It's not like the Packers, who the Packers are a strange team to me. They either go out and they dominate and they look like a Super Bowl team, or they just lose. Where the Bills, they've had those moments where Josh Allen looks electric. He looks like that top 3 MVP guy. And then he had weeks like last week where it was his worst start of the year. He really struggled. The offensive line probably had their worst game, but the defense finally stepped up. They forced Herbert into his worst start of his unbelievable rookie year, and they started to run the football. Zach Moss saw 60% of the snaps, and him and Singletary combined for 141 yards on the ground. If they want to beat the Chiefs, they cannot out-perimeter and out-speed and out-throw Patrick Mahomes like they tried to do in that first matchup where they were handled in the rain. They have to control the ball and play much better defense than they have. And this Chargers game was the first sign of life that I've seen from them. And I've been looking forward all year because McDermott has always built his team around the defensive side of the football and the trenches and running the football. And we're seeing a changing of the guard with Josh Allen. They've been electric through the air, but it's starting to disappear a little bit. The league's starting to catch up a little bit on them. And it's not a sustainable formula of success for a guy like Josh Allen at this stage. And we're even seeing it with Russell Wilson. You can't rely on these QBs so much to do everything. They need some help. And I like what I saw from the Bills. If they can build on what they're doing on the defensive side of the football and running the football, I think they're almost a bigger threat to beat the Chiefs than the Steelers at this point. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. I think they're, believe it or not, I think they're the better. Well, I think it's probably clear that they're the better offense.
They've had a much harder road. Everybody knows that, but they've been in tough games. They should have won that Cardinals game. Josh Allen took them down the field, scored what we thought was a game-winning touchdown with 30 seconds left, and DeAndre Hopkins did what he did, which was an unbelievable play. But that's really good experience for Josh Allen. That stuff's going to matter in the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so my first takeaway is so we were privileged enough to watch one of the greatest wide receiver, quarterback to wide receiver in NFL history, and nobody is talking about it. Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, especially in that first half. I mean, that first half, 203 yards, or it was 203 in the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
And 261 and a half, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
We saw touchdowns of 75, 44, and 20 from Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill leads all players in touchdowns this year, over the last 2 years, over the last 3 years. I mean, ever since Patrick Mahomes took over as quarterback, it's been the Tyreek Hill show.
Did you see what he said this week too? I think it was on ESPN. They talked about what he had thought, his first impression of Mahomes his rookie year, and he said, "I thought he was trash." He was like, seriously, he was like, this is a guy that you guys drafted. He can't throw. And you go back to his rookie training camp, and he really struggled apparently with decision making. And that year on the sidelines behind Alex Smith really helped him. But I think what you said is completely true. No one's talking about. I think we're just bored and desensitized to the greatness of Mahomes.
Yeah, and that upsets me because Patrick Mahomes right now is the one player that I would pay money to watch play football every single week of the year. He is just that good, that special, and there was. It was the second touchdown, the 44-yard touchdown, where he threw it off of his back foot with his momentum leaning backwards, and he threw it sidearm and just flicked his wrist, and it went 30 yards in the air, placed it right in the bucket. And I'm just watching, and I'm like, how does anyone make that throw?
It's not a very long list. It's him and Rodgers. That's it.
And, I mean, I don't know if Rodgers can even make that. Rodgers in his prime, but Rodgers right now, I don't know if he can put it exactly where Mahomes put it with a sidearm flick of the wrist. I mean, it was just, that was one of the more unbelievable throws. And we've seen the no looker. We've seen the switch to the left hand and throw it. We've seen the I'm gonna look to the right and throw to the left. I mean, just everything we're seeing out of Mahomes is, and a lot of it has to do with the connection of Tyreek Hill and the system. This connection may not work in 28 other offensive systems in the league. They just happen to be in the perfect system for both of their skill sets.
It's not fair what they're doing. It's not. I mean, in Travis Kelce to that offense, it's just not fair.
I kept waiting for, because the big stack that I had, and I still ended up cashing in my DFS leagues just because of Mahomes. But I stacked Mahomes with Kelce when I should have.
Well, Kelce still had 8 for 82, I think, and it's like it was a down game for him.
It was the most underwhelming 8 for 82 in the history of the NFL.
Like, we're so spoiled with the Chiefs.
Unreal. All right, so what do you got for number 2?
I think going off some huge games and just talking about Rodgers and Derrick Henry, who was obviously stole the show in Indy. We're not talking about how underrated and how well the Green Bay and Tennessee offensive lines have played. And they're never necessarily those elite groups that you talk about off the top of your head. Vegas, New Orleans, those teams like of that nature. Indy, exactly. Green Bay and Tennessee never come up, but what they did this last week and what Green Bay's really done this entire year is just ridiculous. Aaron Rodgers, for the 3rd game this year, was held sackless. The only time he's been sacked multiple times in the game was Tampa Bay, when it was just an absolute train wreck. But he's only been hit 16 times this year. That doesn't even make any sense, especially when you actually watch the Packers and see the way that Rodgers plays. It's not like he gets rid of the ball that fast. You watch a guy like Ben Roethlisberger today, everything's out of his hand in under two. Exactly. He gets the ball. He gets rid of the ball faster than anyone in the league. He has to play like that. Aaron Rodgers is running around, extending the play, waiting for his receivers to get open down the football field, and he can make those throws that we were just talking about that not many guys can make. But what they're doing, Corey Linsley, who is PFF's number 1 grade center, left the game. They slide Eldon Jenkins, who's played all 5 positions on the offensive line. They slide him into center.
Did you see the graphic that they put up during the game?
It's ridiculous. they slide 6th-round rookie John Runyon Jr. left guard, and they don't miss a beat. I mean, it's crazy. And at Tennessee, they lose Taylor Lewan for the year. Then they lose Ty Sambrailo to the IR, and they put in David Quisenberry, their 3rd left tackle. And what do they go out and do? Derrick Henry gets 4.5 yards before contact in the first half. He had 96 yards before contact against Indy. Now, it's not very fair, not giving context. They didn't have Bobby Okereke, DeForest Buckner, Danico Audrey, so it might not be a very fair barometer, but Indy knew exactly what Tennessee was going to do. They were going to establish the run as they always do with Derrick Henry, and the offensive line was pushing them back 2, 3, 4 yards every single snap. It was really a spectacle to watch, and I don't think they're really getting the respect that they deserve.
And one thing that, and I know that you were talking about injuries with this year, but one of the biggest losses for Tennessee was, I mean, they lost Jack Conklin to free agency, and Jack Conklin last year was probably either number 1 or number 2 in terms of grading out at the right tackle position. And losing him was one of the reasons why I was a little bit afraid of the Tennessee offense, because so much was predicated on them running the ball, which would set up the pass. And
their tackles are more important than the average team. I mean, they are an outside zone-based team. They obviously they run between the tackles a lot with Derrick Henry, but their biggest runs come in the second half outside the tackle when those tackles are the point of attack for those run blocking plays.
I think everyone looks at Derrick Henry and you just assume that he's this guy who can only run between the tackles and run you over. But he's as quick to the edge as
he's got a lot of finesse to his game, really. Yeah. I mean, he just happens to be 250 pounds, but he's a legit 4.5 guy. He's outrunning D-backs in the second and third level. He's throwing, I mean, obviously his stiff arms are crazy violent. He's running over guys, but his cuts are violent. His jukes are violent. He actually caught the ball a little bit last week. Like he's not just this downhill runner that people assume he is.
You know who is not like Derrick Henry at all, especially over these past couple weeks? That's Miles Sanders. And that's my
Don't get me started.
That's my second takeaway, and this is coming from a first place New York Football Giants. Without Daniel Jones is gonna.
Yeah, that's
we weren't beating Seattle with him.
You hate to see it though. He's playing his best football.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's just a 1 week injury, but what in the world is Doug Peterson doing with Miles Sanders?
I think he coached and called that game like he wanted to be fired.
I mean, how against one of the especially since the acquisition of Carlos Dunlap, the Seattle Seahawks defense has improved dramatically. But how could it not when they were on pace for giving up over 6,000 passing yards from earlier on in the season? They have improved, but it's still not a great defense, especially when you think about the Legion of Boom. It's just not that anymore.
No.
But how do you go? And it's not if the Seahawks had jumped out to a 20, 30-point lead, and that's the final numbers that we got from Miles Sanders, I can understand it.
That would make sense.
This game was within a score and a half for the entire game. How do you let your biggest playmaker, maybe your best offensive player, because it's certainly not Carson Wentz.
I think he's our best player. If besides a healthy Lane Johnson, I think he's our best player.
6 carries.
It's unbelievable. It's a disgrace, honestly. And I saw a very disturbing stat after Sunday. The Eagles will become the 4th team since 1950 to average at least 5 yards per carry while running the football an average of 24 times or less per game. It's just a complete neglection of the run game. Doug Peterson becomes really impatient, and he tries to get everything at once. And look, everyone wants to make fun of Carson Wentz, and rightfully so. He's been awful. I'm not going to defend the guy, but Doug Peterson does him no favors by the way he calls a football game. When you drop back Carson Wentz 54 times with that offensive line without complementing it with any sort of threat of a run game, those DNs and those edge guys and Jamal Adams can just tee off on Carson Wentz, and he's getting hit left and right. I mean, yes, he has the Jameis interception totals on pace for that, but he has the David Carr sack totals to go along with it. It's not offense. I had my jaw dropped watching the football game, and it was like a JV football game. I really couldn't comprehend what Doug Peterson was trying to do.
And it's not like you have, and I would also be able to understand it if you have Patrick Mahomes back there and you're giving a really good running back 6 attempts all game. But Carson went over the past month, and it may even be all year. I just haven't paid enough attention. But Carson Wentz is maybe the second or in the bottom 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL over the past month.
In every metric.
He cannot hit an open receiver. He can't throw a receiver open. He can't stay on his feet because the offensive line is crumbling in front of him. And they refuse to use their best offensive weapon. I mean, I'm okay with it as a Giants fan. Let them, but as someone who owns Miles Sanders in my two biggest fantasy leagues, you got to use him.
And the way you make it easier for a quarterback is you give him easier reads. You establish the run. You give him better matchups down the football field to throw at. When the Seahawks know a run isn't coming, it makes it so much easier for them to play defense in front of them. I mean, it's just so hard to watch the Eagles. It's really a chore now. It's terrible.
All right. What do you have as your third and final takeaway of Week 12?
Okay, so I will take my victory lap now. I did call Matt Patricia getting fired before that football game, but I mean, that was absolutely embarrassing. But I'm not sure. I'm not as confident in this one, but the NFL had released their flexed schedule for Week 16 and what they do in Week 16, Week 17 every year for their Saturday primetime slate as the college season winds down. And we're getting Raiders, Dolphins at 8:15 the day after Christmas on Saturday. I think that might be for a wild card spot. Now, the Dolphins are in the playoffs right now. I think it's the 6 seed, the Colts are the 7, and the Raiders are the 9 seed right now. So the Raiders are outside looking in, but the Raiders got the Jets this week. I think they'll climb up maybe to that 8 or that 7 eventually before this matchup. But this very well could be for a playoff spot. The winner gets that tiebreaker, Sweet 16. There's really no time to make that game up. But who would have thought before the season you circle that game on your calendar and you say this game is going to have huge playoff implications? And you got to give credit to these front offices and these head coaches for having a really patient and really holistic approach to reconstructing just absolute messes when they got there. The Raiders with Gruden and Mayock, and Miami with Flores and Greer. But these teams were laughed at no longer than 2 years ago. I mean, you think back to the Raiders for trading Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack, everyone's laughing at them. But look at them now. Some of these picks have really panned out, and they have a real shot to make a wild card. And Miami's even a bigger surprise to me. But that turnaround has been so fast. And we've given a lot of praise to Miami on this podcast, but they're positioned really nicely to have a legitimate shot to even win the AFC East at this point if they win out or if they win most of their games and beat the Bills in Week 17. So I can't wait for this game. It might be for a playoff spot. Even if it's not, I'm going to be locked into it. And it's still 4 weeks away, but I don't care. I can't wait for this game. I love both of these teams, what they've done this year.
Now, one thing that I was a little confused about when I looked into the Week 16 schedule, why is Thursday is Christmas Eve. Why is there not a Christmas Eve game and they moved it to Christmas? I think that was the Vikings Saints.
Your guess is as good as mine. And then they put Tampa Detroit on the Saturday slate. I'm done with Tampa in these national TV games. I'm done watching them. But that's what the NFL is going to do, and I'm complicit in it. Of course, I'm going to watch them, but the way they've scheduled games this year is just mind-boggling to me. We don't have to get into it, but just some of these teams, the amount of times I've seen the Bears, the Bucks, and the Eagles on prime time is just way too much.
Yeah, I mean, football. NFL football is not necessarily what I think of on, and I'm not an NBA fan. I prefer college basketball, but Christmas is the five.
I was going to say NBA dominates Christmas,
right? You have
that's a weird decision,
and you put it right in the at 4:30. That doesn't make sense, especially when you could have owned the Christmas Eve time slot. We're not getting hockey until after the new year, and the NBA, like I said before, is primarily Christmas Day dominated. So you could have owned whatever time slot you
and
wanted.
Thursday's your night anyway. Everyone knows
Right,
that.
exactly. If you didn't want to have it at 8, okay, you didn't have to have it at 8. It's a day most people have off of work.
I love how the NFL got bullied out of the Rockefeller tree showing today. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, it tells you. I mean, it tells you that people actually need a little bit more joy in their lives, because they're so set. And again, they had this scheduled. They would have had to have done so much to work around this that it would have just caused too much of a headache.
Yeah.
So I mean, all right. So I was contemplating my my third takeaway, and originally it was going to be that that the NFL allowing J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram to play today was going to be a sham, but they ended up not playing. So that took away some of. So I went with my other one, and that's the fact that this year's rookie class of wide receivers may end up, and we've talked about this rookie class a couple times already as a whole, but this may go down as one of those classes that's going to be compared to the 83 quarterback class. And we saw there were 3 Hall of Famers plus one who should be in the Hall of Fame. But this is you go in and you watch, and one of the reasons why I thought about it for this week was what I saw from T. Higgins this past week. He is going in with a quarterback, Brandon Allen, the practice squad guy, and he still comes out with 5 catches, over 80 yards, and a touchdown. When that was almost Brandon Allen's entire passing line this past week, and he was doing it with. I know that the touchdown was on Isaac Yiadom, but he definitely saw a bunch of James Bradbury, and I think it was 2 or 3 of his catches were when Bradbury was covering him. And then you look at, and I know your guy Justin Jefferson is just ridiculous. And I, as I said on the fantasy show, I wasn't sure about whether or not he was ready enough to take on the number 1 role this past week. And it was one of the reasons why I was also down on Kirk Cousins, who quietly has put together 5 out of 6 games as a top 10 quarterback. And we all want to poo-poo on Kirk Cousins, but he's part of he's one of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest reason, why this team has turned around and put themselves right back into the wild card discussion in the NFC.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that is crazy about this wide receiver class is the depth. I mean, we're spoiled with how many guys have already taken off this year and had an immediate impact. I mean, the obvious ones like CD, Justin Jefferson, Claypool, those guys. But then you get a guy like T. Higgins, as he said, who I think him and Burrow have a chance to be one of the best duos in the next 10 years. Chenal, Jerry Jeudy hasn't really taken off in the Broncos, but you hear snippets from Emmanuel Sanders, who's getting coached up by Jeudy on route running. This 21-year-old rookie. Give that guy a quarterback and watch him go. I mean, you see a guy like Bryan Edwards, who's been hurt this entire year. I have high hopes for him. Gabriel Davis.
I was so high on Bryan Edwards.
But I mean, these receivers, sometimes they take some time.
Right.
I mean, Gabriel Davis has played really well.
Gabriel Davis.
Brandon Ayuk, he's been hurt. He was on the COVID list the last 2 weeks, but I mean, he is just he's the Energizer Bunny. He's Debo Light. I mean, that dude's a freak athlete. Darnell Mooney, I mean, he was a 5th round choice, but you're seeing snippets of him in that Chicago QB situation. I mean, and the list goes on and on.
Jalen
Rager, Van Jefferson, KJ Hamler. I mean, the depth is just ridiculous. It doesn't end.
Yeah, there could legitimately be 15 wide receivers in this class that are going to be legitimate number one wide receivers for their team. I mean,
and the Packers didn't take one.
Oh my God! Imagine Aaron Rodgers with someone like Chase Claypool.
I was gonna say T. Higgins, like a layup pick him out of the first round. Are you kidding me? With Devontae, stop
Jordan
it.
Love,
Oh
Austin,
AJ Dillon,
yeah.
And then last year's receiver class, I don't think they had the depth, but DK, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin. Are you kidding me? I mean, these receivers the past 3 years, and next year it's going to be the same thing. Next year's receiver class is unbelievable as well.
Yeah, got him. And you know exactly who was picked right before DK Metcalf, right? One pick before him, right?
Was it Andy Isabella?
It was Andy Isabella. Imagine
that's what pisses me off when people do the JJ Ortega-Whiteside thing, which I get. But there were 2 other receivers picked after him, Paris Campbell and Andy Isabella, and no one gives the Colts or Cardinals any crap for that. And I won't stand for it because, yes, I know Ortega-Whiteside hasn't even contributed a little bit, but come on. I mean, can we give the Cardinals and Colts a little bit of grief for passing on him too, please?
Imagine the Cardinals offense if you add DK Metcalf.
Can you imagine the Chiefs if they took him over Mecole in the second round? That's all Mecole was a luxury pick. I mean, and Tyreek Hill he had the allegations.
Suspension.
He had the pending suspension. He had the pending suspension, but DK, Kelsey, and Tyreek, I mean, we might as well not play the games.
just ship them to Lombardi.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So this wide receiver class is just something that can be one of the most special groups in terms of a draft class, maybe in NFL history. So, all right, let's get into some picks. So we don't have a Thursday night football game because tomorrow night was supposed to include one of tonight's teams. Thank you, Ravens. So we have both of our teams are playing at 4:00 on Sunday. Your Philadelphia Eagles are hosting the.
We're going to Lambeau. We're playing
that's right. You're at Lambeau for the Green Bay Packers, which is the Fox game of the week or CBS game of the week. I think for some reason this game is actually on CBS. Two NFC teams are playing on CBS. It just makes no sense. But right now it's a 9-point spread, 46.5 point over under.
So the Green Bay Packers have obviously been on a historic tear on offense, and they're averaging over 30 a game. They've hit that mark 8 times. The Eagles have not hit the 30-point mark once this year. They are the only NFL team to not hit that mark this year. Absolutely unbelievable, except for the Jets. Sorry, them and the Jets. So that's good. We're paired with the Jets.
I thought you said NFL teams.
Us and the Jets. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not even sure the Eagles could beat the Jets right now. Seriously, if it's Flacco back there, I'm really not sure. But yeah, I mean, 9.5 points is a ton of points, but how can you fathom the Eagles keeping this within one possession? You really can't right now. And of course, the Eagles always do what they do. They backdoor cover with a garbage time touchdown, which I think is their one prayer of maybe covering the spread here because they've done that 2 weeks now. But Packers in a layup. The defense has played admirably the last 2 weeks against Cleveland and Seattle. They can't really keep this up, how much they're on the field. And they're playing a better offense in Green Bay. I think Green Bay is rolling by 2 or 3 scores in this one.
So in one of my fantasy leagues, somebody lost their matchup this week because of that Richard Rodgers touchdown. They played the Seattle defense, and when they were up by 3 after being down by whatever they were down by, and that touchdown gave them -3 points. They ended up losing by less than a point.
Oh my God. It was the dumbest play ever, too.
Oh
Because,
my God, it was awful.
Rodgers' hand-eye on that was actually ridiculous. I think if that play happened 100 times, I think he would have caught it once or twice. Like, it was just a fluke, crazy play, and it lost a lot of people a lot of money because the opening line or the line that was at kickoff was -6.5 Seattle. Most of the money was on Seattle, including a bettor through DraftKings who put $500,000 on Seattle -6.5, $500,000.
God, imagine
having money. Yeah,
I was going to say, imagine having the balls to just put down that to be okay with losing that kind of money.
It made me think of the Floyd Mayweather multi-million-dollar bet he placed on Michigan in opening weekend, like 5-6 years ago, and they got rolled by like 30. That was just justice. But
was that the Notre Dame game?
No, it was Alabama, Michigan to open the season.
Okay.
It was to open the season. It was like, dude, what? Like, why? But he has billions of dollars, so I mean, I guess you could do that.
I'm taking the over, and I am taking Green Bay -9.5. Then we got the Giants going out west to the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, it's a 10-point spread, 46.5, or so on some of them, most of them, it's 46.5. Right now. You can't put anything down on this game until you absolutely know if Daniel Jones is going to be playing. I'm assuming we don't see Daniel Jones this week. I think it would be tough for the Giants to win in Seattle, even with Daniel Jones. So maybe it's better for the team to let him sit, get healthy for the Cardinals at home the week after, which would, especially with the way the Cardinals have been playing over the past couple weeks, it's a more winnable game now than we thought of a couple weeks ago. And so I actually saw who was it? It was Art Stapleton, who's one of the Giants beat writers. He tweeted out. He said, it's funny that the Giants fans, who a couple weeks ago were saying we can't win a big game with Daniel Jones, are now saying we can't win a big game without Daniel Jones.
That's unreal.
And it's so true. And I mean, I've been a Daniel Jones supporter. I think he's gotten a lot of flack. I mean, some of it is earned, the ball security issues, but he's really done a great job of learning from those mistakes. It took a lot longer than other quarterbacks have taken, but he seems to have taken that next step into becoming one of the I guess not even safer, but you can a reliable quarterback. And,
definitely.
And this hamstring injury for someone who needs to use his legs in order to be successful. I think right now the smartest thing to do would be to sit him for a week, and let him get healthy for the Arizona Cardinals. So with that thought in head, I'm going to take Seattle -10. I'm going to take the under because Seattle's offense, I mean, right now they're struggling as well. Russell Wilson is a shell of the first half Russell Wilson that we saw of this season. They're not incorporating Tyler Lockett the way that they had earlier in the season. And I also saw that Chris Carson didn't necessarily come away from this this game against Philly completely healthy. That he's sore. Don't know, and right now his status for this week is in question, and they're a much better team when Chris Carson is out there. I mean, that his touchdown run, that was a man's touchdown run.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree. I'm going to take Seattle, but it's interesting. Thinking back to 4 weeks ago, they came at a crossroads when they were 1-7, and they had that kind of do or die game with Washington. And I had my doubts just off of what I saw from Joe Judge, and I think it's really tough to play for that style when you're losing. And give all the credit to him. Clearly, the players love the guy and are fighting for him because they've won 3 straight since. Daniel Jones has played his best football, and it's just a resilient group. I mean, you watch that Philadelphia game, and they just beat him in every phase. They were the better football team. It's well coached, and Daniel Jones is taking everything that's in front of him, and he played like a vet. And we get impatient with quarterbacks now because we see so many guys come in the league and tear it up, but it takes some guys some time, and I think Eli Manning was one of those guys. I mean, he obviously showed promise, but year 4, year 3, I think there were definitely question marks if Eli was really that long-term guy. And that same year, in year 4, was the year he won his first Super Bowl, right? Yep. That wild card. Yep. And I'm not saying the Giants are going to go and win the Super Bowl, but what Daniel Jones has done the last 3 weeks deserves a ton of credit. What Joe Judge has done this year is a remarkable coaching job. The fact that they're in first place at this point and they're in the driver's seat in the NFC East. I actually lean more towards the Giants +10, and I understand it's looking more towards Colt McCoy, but the way Patrick Graham has them playing on defense, and to that sentiment, what you just said, and how Seattle's playing on offense, I really think Pete Carroll's bogging it down back to the old game manager ways of Russell Wilson. I mean, that Buffalo game a couple weeks ago where they got handed to him, it was a culmination of the let Russ cook era, and it ended.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but you said the let Russ cook thing, and want to give a shout out to Mike Wright of the Fantasy Footballers, who had maybe the best tweet of the week, and he tweeted out, "Let Russ order takeout."
Well, I mean, it was really fun while it lasted, and I was honestly surprised to see it last this long with Pete Carroll, because that's just not the brand of football he wants to play. And it really, I think it was wearing on Russell Wilson. It's not sustainable for an entire season. That's not going to work in the playoffs with his supporting cast in that offensive line. I mean, he was taking a lot of hits, and he was taking a lot of
sacked. I mean,
he's taking a lot of unwarranted risks down the field that he usually doesn't take. He's not a high volume thrower. A lot of his work is through the ground and scrambling on third down, but they want to be a running football team more so. I kind of think they're taking that Buffalo turn where they're turning more towards the ground. They're helping their defense out by possessing the ball more on offense and resting them up. Jamal Adams, since he's been inserted back, has been a madman off the edge. I like the under for sure. I think it's going to be closer than what you think. And Colt McCoy, with a week of preparation, will definitely play better than he did at Cincinnati. I'm not saying he's going to
play worse.
He's not going to rip it up, but 10 points is a lot. The Giants are playing good football. I actually feel okay about them covering the spread there.
Yeah, McCoy just scares me. I mean, he comes in and his first pass is completed for -9 yards.
Yeah.
I don't trust Colt McCoy.
No, as you shouldn't. But he's been in the league for quite some time. It is a new system to him, but I mean, he's been a backup. He's been through the ropes, and he gets a week of preparation. It'll be better, and it's not like he's going against a smothering defense.
Colt McCoy has 7 starts in the last 8 years.
Some RG3 numbers right there.
Yeah. The play that killed me was they could have put the game completely out of reach, and I don't know if you were watching at this point. They catch the Bengals in an all-out blitz, and Dion Lewis leaks out into the flat.
Oh my God! I did see that.
There's nobody within 20 yards of him. 20 yards of him, and he overthrows him by 6.
Yeah.
I mean,
you just knew that Colt McCoy, you had to just crawl to the finish line hoping that
right.
you were ahead of the Bengals by the end. And I mean, you played Brandon Allen, so it's fine. And you get through it. But I mean, it's a really tough situation to go in the middle of the game like that.
It is. And I mean, you got to give the defense a ton of credit. That is a game that the Giants of the past 3 years lose. They allow, especially you see the punt return by Erickson gets them to midfield, and you're like, oh my God, they need 15 yards to get in field goal range, and in 50 seconds, here comes the most brutal loss of the season, and they're able to force the turnover on the first play.
Do you think Patrick Graham gets some interviews at the end of this year? I think he deserves them. It might be a little too early, but I mean, he's been unbelievable.
I think he'll get interviews. I think he still needs at least one more year as a coordinator to prove that what this Giants defense has looked like this year isn't a fluke. But we've said it before on this podcast. The defense is the reason that the Giants are where they are right now, but they're not going to be where they want to be if Colt McCoy is going to be the guy for. So heal up, DJ. All right, so then we have the Sunday night football game this week, and we have an AFC clash. The Denver Broncos, who are going to have a quarterback this week. What a train wreck that was.
Poor Denver. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what a train wreck. But the Kansas City Chiefs host the Denver Broncos. It's a 14-point spread and a 51-point over-under.
Interesting. I mean, I don't really know where to go with this game because I mean the Broncos are going to get a jump just getting Drew Lock back underneath center, and they for as horrible as that game was, they played pretty admirably defensively. They played about as good as you could. They were just on the field the entire football game, and they traditionally, I mean, they're going to play Kansas City tighter within the division. Vic Fangio's one of the better defensive minds in football. So I almost want to say the Broncos cover, but I never feel comfortable going against the Chiefs. So I think the Chiefs win, and I would just stick away from this spread. 51 over under, I think it's going to be an over.
Yeah, I'll take the over. If I had to choose right now, I'd probably choose to lay the 14. I don't know if you saw this stat that the Broncos did not complete a pass in the first half.
Oh no! I mean, they had one completion.
Do you know when the last time an NFL team didn't complete a pass in the first half?
Oh man, was I alive?
Yes.
Oh no, that is this going to make me upset?
No. It's going to make you laugh.
Who?
It's the 2011 Denver Broncos under Tim Tebow.
Oh my God! Of course. I should have known. Was that the game where he had like 3 completions and he won?
That was.
Oh my God! I remember that. He threw for like 55 yards and he won.
It was against the Chiefs.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Poor Kendall Hinn, man. Like props to him for.
Yeah. He has a story that he's gonna be able to tell his grandkids.
And that will probably never – there will never be a circumstance that unique ever again in NFL history. I mean, the man never took snaps in practice. He was literally thrusted into his first NFL snaps under center playing quarterback for an NFL team. Like just –
against one of the top, 5-6 defenses in the league?
Yeah, they've been lights out, exactly. So – props to him. Exactly what you said. That's a lifelong memory that he'll have forever. But probably wasn't the funnest game for him at the time. But I was honestly mad at the NFL for doing it. I was glued to the TV just because I was curious. But the inconsistencies they've had with these teams and these COVID-riddled teams and the outbreaks that have happened. I mean, the parameters in which that took place. Driscoll had tested positive on Thursday. and the QB room was exposed to him without a mask for 15 minutes, and they had tested negative. All three of them, Bortles, Locke, Rippon. All three of them had tested negative the next 2 days. It didn't matter. They wanted to set the precedent. But then with the Ravens, they keep pushing the game back, allowing some of these guys to be activated off the COVID list, and they had not followed rules with their strength coach. So it's just very hypocritical, and I think they know they could get away with it because it's the Broncos, and it's not a primetime game, and we're going to be glued to the TV anyway because we want to see what's happening.
And I'm not condoning what the Broncos did at all in the quarterback.
But I also think teams, if you looked hard enough, I'm sure every team in that instant has instances like that within certain position groups where they're not wearing masks in the locker room, in the weight room, in the meeting room, stuff like that. It was, I don't know. It really kind of just rubbed me the wrong way with how the NFL's handled this.
I came this close to making that as one of my takeaways. The fact that the Broncos got the short end of the stick. All right, let's move on to Monday night, and hey,
doubleheader.
We've got a doubleheader. We've got Monday afternoon football, or Monday early evening football, and then Monday night football. So we've got the first game is Pittsburgh hosting Washington. The early spread right now is 8.5 for Pittsburgh with a 44-point over under.
I'll lay the 8.5 with Pittsburgh. I think today was so sloppy, but that was as close to a bye week as they've had since week 3. I think the vets really needed that, and there was a lot of rust that showed early with drops and turnovers that I think they're going to be a lot cleaner against Washington, and I think Alex Smith's going to have a really tough time scoring on Monday night. If you're Pittsburgh, you're going into that game, you're going to take away Antonio Gibson, and you're going to give Terry McLaurin a safety over the top the entire game, and you're going to have everyone else try to beat you. So I feel pretty confident that Pittsburgh's going to cover there.
There's some defenses that Alex Smith can navigate because of his professionalism, because of his knowledge of the game. He's not at a point of his career where I think he can navigate this Pittsburgh defense. He just doesn't have the mobility anymore. And they're just going to put so much pressure on him. And there's going to be the happy feet. And we saw with that one, the pick 6 to Jalen Smith in a game that they were dominating. He still McLaurin actually saved the touchdown.
That was a really good effort.
Oh my goodness! If it wasn't for DK Metcalf earlier in the year, that would have gone down as one of the better hustle plays.
Jalen Smith looked so not unathletic, but his entire body looked like he was running a 4.3, but he was going at like a 5.3 pace. He had the shortest strides I've ever seen.
Daniel Jones syndrome.
Seriously, at least Daniel Jones looked fast. I just think he was shocked he was untouched that long and fell.
So I just don't think that this is a great matchup for Alex Smith. I'm going to lay the 8.5. I'll probably take the under as well.
Agreed.
Even though it's only 44, I think it's going to be
great
tough.
Defenses too.
Yeah.
Even Washington, they've played great football.
Yep, that they have. All right, then Monday afterwards, we've got that. This should be one of maybe in fact, to me, the best matchup of the week.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Buffalo, San Fran, and I only wish that Jimmy Garoppolo were playing in it because right now, and as great as San Fran looked against the Rams last week, there's just such an enormous disparity in the quarterback play in this game. The Bills have one thing they need to do, and that's contain Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel was the spark plug that the 49ers had been in need of over the past couple weeks, and man, was he good.
I get nervous every time I watch him just because he literally runs like a fullback. And that's why, I mean, his violent nature, he's going to get hurt a lot, but it's just so fun to watch. I mean, he's a special kind of weapon that I think would only be utilized like correctly and maximize his potential on a Shanahan offense. I mean, his yak ability is a perfect fit. And now you get Brandon Ayuk back. So we saw Mostert back in the mix get a touchdown, and I mean, he's electric as it is in the backfield. Deebo is kind of that Jenga piece on that offense, and then you get Ayuk back. Him and Samuel have never been both 100% together. They've both been together, I think, in 2 games, but each hampered with injuries in certain instances or both just missing time, and they've never played together. They finally get together on Monday night against Buffalo. And as I said earlier in the show, Buffalo's showing signs of life on defense, but they have something to prove on Monday night. This is a dynamic offense with some playmakers.
Yeah, and we saw the 49ers defense sort of gain some of the life that they had last year in this previous week's game against the Rams. I know I was knocking Richard Sherman on the fantasy show,
Played well.
And and he had one hell of a game. But this is just a more explosive offense with Buffalo than the Rams are so generic. When
they really are.
But this is. I mean, look at. We had the Cole Beasley to Gabriel Davis touchdown.
The receivers are great. I mean, they have as much depth and speed and just, I mean, they can take the top off you with 3 different guys, and then Cole Beasley hurts you underneath, and even Dawson Knox getting in the mix now a little bit. That run game's starting to come together. They got a lot of fun pieces.
Yeah, and so, this is a game that I'm really looking forward to. The spread is only 1.5, and it's a 48-point over/under. I'm leaning towards the under right now. That's a pretty high number for 2 defenses that are playing really, or coming off of maybe their best games of the year. I think right now Buffalo is a little too much for the offense for an offense that's led by Nick Mullins. So I'll go Buffalo laying the 1.5, and I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'll agree there. The only thing I would say to watch out for is John Brown's on the IR. He was placed there before that game last week, and I think this passing attack really misses something when he's not in the lineup. Gabriel Davis has played great, but Josh Allen has struggled without John Brown in the lineup. Josh Allen, that is. So I do think it'll be a really tight game the whole way, but I'm going to take Buffalo in the 1.5 there.
And then we'll wrap it up with the Ravens again. The league bending backwards. I mean, why can't they have punished Baltimore and put them in the Monday afternoon time slot and given Pittsburgh the extra day? I don't know.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So you have Baltimore hosting Dallas. There is not a line that is set right now, so let's just pick the game. I think we're expecting Lamar Jackson to be back. The running backs will be back. Hopefully, the majority of the players that had to miss this game for Baltimore will be back. There will be some that will miss because of positive tests that from this week, but so many. I mean, what was it? 10. I think they said it was 10 days in a row. 10
days, 26 cases consecutively. I mean, there's been no standard set by the NFL. They're just winging it.
Yep. But to me, Dallas is just such a train wreck right now.
That was embarrassing.
just when they come off of a surprising win against Minnesota, and you think, oh, maybe they're getting back into the division mix, and I mean, it was just that performance on Thanksgiving was one of the more pathetic performances I've seen from a Cowboys team in quite some time.
That was the worst fake punt call I've seen since the Colts fake with Pat McAfee under center. I mean, the context within which it was called.
Was that the one where it was two linemen and everybody
it was just the center and McAfee, and the Patriots were just crowding, mugging. It was like four Patriots right there, and then they went everyone towards the boundary. And I mean, I don't know if you've heard the clip of McAfee explaining it on his show, where he was like, the long snapper who had snapped was not the guy that had been practicing all week, so they were never planning to snap the football, and he did. So besides that play, that might have been the worst big punt I have seen in quite some time. I mean, it was 4th and 10, and you run a reverse that adds an extra 15 yards to the run, and it's in your own territory, backed up, losing. It was nuts. It legitimately made me think the Cowboys are tanking for a higher pick. It was that bad a call.
It was so bad, and for a fake punt to lose yards,
Washington wasn't even ready for it because it was such a bizarre call. It just didn't make any sense.
I'm going to go Ravens, especially because it now becomes must win pretty much every week for them.
Yeah,
it's a really competitive AFC right now, and they're sitting at 6-5.
Yeah, I mean, and they're on the outside looking in again. They were going in that Steelers game. Now they're further back. They were missing so many key pieces today, though. I mean, it's so you look out when the spread comes out. You look out for guys like Lamar, Pat Ricard, Calais Campbell, the running backs, Willie Snead. I mean, these are all difference makers on this team. So I would assume
Snead. I doubt we see because that was
and Mark Andrews.
This year,
and Mark Andrews as well. Mark Andrews has an underlying issue as well, so
diabetes.
I highly doubt he's ready next Tuesday. But those other names are difference makers on those teams that you should watch out for when this spread does come out. I like the Ravens, and we talked about it before the show, but they have a pretty favorable stretch here. They go Cowboys. Cleveland's going to be a huge one the week after. Jacksonville, your Giants, and they end up with Cincinnati. So they got to run the table, or they got to win 4 of them to make it in my eyes.
Yeah. And I think they get the first one this Tuesday night football.
I agree.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for tonight's show. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you're checking out backsportspage.com for all the great content and all the archives to the great web shows, podcasts that we got going up. Make sure you're checking out Derek's Power Rankings. Follow Derek on Twitter at Derek Mountain. I'm at rstern33. Follow Backsports Page on all social media at Backsports Page, and make sure you are subscribing on YouTube and Twitter so that you can get the notifications when we go live, especially this Sunday for the BSP Sunday Morning Fantasy Show. So until we see you on Sunday, have a great night.
You as well.